today we will be diving straight into the introduction to automation testing, right? So we'll be looking at what automation testing is, okay? The type of automation testing. We'll be looking into the advantage and disadvantage of automation testing. Okay, so now, we've been doing manual testing, and today we'll be looking into how to use softwares, right, to do the same thing we've been doing manually, right? So in a nutshell, that is what automation testing is all about. But let's dive straight into it. Let's look at the table of contents. And from there, we can progress. So table of contents, we'll be looking into what is automation testing. We'll be looking into type of automation testing. We'll be looking into advantage, popular automation testing tool, best practices in automation testing, best practices in automation testing, challenges of automation testing, so the challenges in automation testing, okay, and strategy to address automation testing challenges, and then I will show you a sample of automation testing scripts. Okay, yeah. So the essence of this, because I know when we mention automation testing, we want to dive straight into automation testing and start writing code. But sometimes it doesn't just work like that, right? Because we might dive into it, and when you are being asked questions around automation testing, you might not have a full understanding of what it is. Okay, that's why this is very important that we understand what automation testing is. Okay, so it will be a short and easy one. I intend to make it more interactive because we've done manual testing. We are all doing it. You are all manual test engineers, so you do your manual testing with ease. So what we are doing in manual testing is what we're using softwares, right, to do. Okay, and that is what automation testing is. So let's look at what is automation testing. Right. So automation testing is a software testing technique that uses specialized tools and scripts, okay, to execute predefined test cases for a software application. So those testing that you do with manual, those testing that you do manually, right? So in the case of automation testing, you are now using tools. You are now using software tools and scripts, right, to automate the execution of that same software, right? That is just what automation testing is. It's nothing so different. It's just using, software tools and test scripts, right, that you've written in a particular programming language, okay, to test your software application, right? So it involves creating scripts or test cases that can be run automatically rather than requiring manual effort, right? So when we are testing our softwares and application manually, right, we'll write our test case and we'll go into the website to manually check what's going on. We'll go into our application software. It could be website, it could be mobile application, to manually, it could be API, right, to manually test it, right? But for automation, when you want to automate that particular testing process, right, so you make use of a software tool, okay, and it scripts, right? So once you run that test script, right, it will automatically run your test for you. If it is website, that your script will navigate to that particular website and perform whatever activity or whatever test you want to perform, right? It will perform it on its own and give you the results, and will validate if the expected result has met or matched the actual results. Okay, so that's what automation testing is. Okay, so the next question we're going to ask is what are the types of automation testing, right? What are the types of automation testing? Types of automation testing. So what are the type of automation testing? We already know the type of testing we do. We already know that we do unit testing, which will say that it's been done by developer, right? So we already know we do integration testing. We already know that we do functional, non-functional testing. We do regression. We do smoke testing, right? So, but can we automate this kind of testing? The answer is yes. So you can write unit testing. You can use an automated script, all right, to write unit testing. Okay, and as you know, that the unit testing involves testing individual units or component of a software in isolation, right? And you already know that the purpose of doing that is to verify that each unit of the software perform as designed, right? That is unit testing. So I also want to let you know that you can use an automated test script, you can use a software, you can also use a script, automated script to perform unit testing, right? You also know what integration testing is, and you can do automated, you can use your automated test to do or carry out integration testing. Right. So, and you all know what integration testing is, where you are testing interaction between different units or components to ensure that they work together as expected. And the purpose is to identify defects in the interaction between integrated components. Right. So you also do automated automation testing. Okay. So while carrying out integration testing, right? You also do functional testing. You can use automated tests to perform functional testing. And I believe we all know what functional testing is, but to recap, right? You are validating the functional aspect of the software to ensure that it meets its specified requirement. And what are you expected to achieve? The purpose of doing that is to verify that the software behaves as expected from functional perspective. That is why it's called functional testing, right? So now you use automated tests or automation testing as well, okay, to carry out functional testing. You use automation testing to carry out regression testing. You use automation testing to carry out regression testing. So let's say you've carried out tested or you've written a test around a particular feature, right? And a work has been done there, and you've gone retested, right? And that particular feature is working. If you want to, you can run your test scripts, okay, to carry out automation regression testing to ensure that the new changes or any updates on that software does not impact an existing functionality, right? And the purpose of it is to ensure that previously tested features in the that previously tested features continue to work after any modification or any change or any job that is being done or any update that is being done on that particular software. So we use automation testing for regression purpose, right? And we also use automation testing for carrying out smoke testing, right? So sometimes when you are writing when you are writing automated tests, and the aim of it and the type of testing you want to do or want to carry out is smoke testing, you can easily, navigate to that website to validate, that those features appear there. Just that quick, preliminary test to ensure that the basic functionality of the software work before more in-depth testing, before you start doing your maybe functional testing or before you start doing your integration testing or system testing. All right. So now let's go over to advantage of automation testing. I want us to be a bit quicker because yeah, we've taken more time doing our stand up. So advantage of automation testing. Right. The first one is faster execution. Right, faster execution. It's an advantage. Automated tests can be executed much more faster than manual testing, right? This is particularly beneficial for large and complex applications or when there is a need for quick feedback during development process. So let's say development work is ongoing, you've written your automation testing, right? You've automation testing is already your script is ready, right? And then they want a quick check, a quick feedback. They want to say if a particular functionality is still working, right, as it's intended to work, right? So if you want to do manual testing, you have to go back, start going through the website, start checking if that particular feature is still working, right? But if you have your automated test scripts ready, right, what you just do is just run your test. Once you run your automated test, it goes perform everything within a very short period of time, quick, and efficient. You get your test result, right? It's execute faster. It doesn't waste time. All right. So that is one of the advantage, right, of automation tests. And the second one is reusability of test scripts. Reusability of test scripts. So once you've created your automated tests, right? Once you've created your automated test script, you can reuse it across different test cycles and projects, right? This reusability saves time and effort in creating a new test cases for each interaction. So let's say you've created maybe a login functionality, or you've created a automated test script for a login functionality, for example, right? So when you want to create, right, when you have another functionality that a customer or a client need to perform, right? And before he or she performs that functionality, the customer or the client need to log in first. You can reuse that particular login functionality, okay? The code that you've written or the automated script that you've written for that login, you just reuse it and then add one or two steps. That's what Kingsley was saying, when we're doing our pointing section about, okay, you've written your automated test script for view for navigating to about us, right? So you've written that, yeah, user navigate and user click on about our user see. So if you want to perform any other test around that particular about us, because you have that step already, all you could just add is you reuse that particular test script that you've already used created before, and then just add one step to validate the exact thing you want to validate on that particular page, right? So, but let's say you are doing manual testing, you have to go back and then go through that particular step to get to where you want to get to before you start testing. Okay, so that is another advantage of automation testing. And we'll look at another one. It's increased test coverage. It's increased test coverage, right? Automation testing allows for the execution of large number of complex and repetitive test cases during every test cycle. So you can run as much number as a lot of test case, right? At the same time, you can run it and it goes faster and execute. You can run it much more, you know, repetitive tests over and over again. It helps to achieve high test coverage, and it ensure that more aspects of that software are being tested. So you've written your test case, you've written your automated test script, and once you are running it, right? So it helps you to cover more, aspects of that software, right? It does it more better than when you are doing it manually. Okay, so this is another one. So we have consistency and accuracy. Consistency and accuracy. Let's say you are doing manually. Sometimes you can mistakenly, you may have tested a particular software, and maybe you're working, you're not in the right frame of mind, or that day is just not your day, right? So you can skip things, you can false alarm, false negative, or false positive, right? You could raise a bug and say, this is a bug, but it's not a bug. But once you have your automated test scripts, you're not doing it manual, right? It will give you consistent results, right? And it's more accurate than doing it manually, right? So the automated tests perform the same set of predefined action because you've already written it consistently and accurately every time they run it. But if you're doing it manually, sometimes you might make mistake, right? So that's what I was trying to say. This helps to reduce the risk of human errors associated with manual testing, that you making mistake or skipping things or raising things that is not a bug, right? This what automation testing will help you do is to remove that, give you consistent results. Okay, so the next one, these are very important because let's say you have been interviewed for a position of a manual automation testing, and maybe the organization may have been doing automation and manual testing before, and they want to understand you are coming in, maybe an expert as or the team, right, feel that they require automation tester, and you could come in or during your interview, they could just, why do you think automation testing is better than manual test, or we should go for more automation testing other than manual testing? These are the things that you need to let them know, right? That will make them or assure them, yes, they're on the right path and you actually know what you're doing. Right. So take note of all this. Okay. So early detection of defects. Early detection of defects. Right. So automation facilitates early and frequent testing. Right. So once, let's say you have a huge software that you are testing, right, and you are doing it manually. You could run manually. You could do your test manually, and then you don't have the capacity to go over and over again. Let's say code has been built, deploy more code to your testing environment or to a particular environment, right? So often at times they break their code or the new introduced functionality will cause another functionality to stop working. But because or to start working as it should, as not expected, right? So before you know it, but when you're testing it manually, you just keep testing new feature, you just keep testing new feature over and over again, right? You would not detect the bug that or any bug that must have been introduced as a result of new build, right? So, but when you have your automation test, right? So once you are running it, right? Even when you haven't gone back to manually testing, your automation testing will dictate that, right? Once it has failed, it will dictate that something has gone wrong. And then you know that, yeah, this is not working. We'll have a bug. We can investigate it and raise the bug accordingly. So that is one of the advantage of automation testing. So we'll look at the next one, cost effectiveness, right? It is cost efficient, right? We'll look at the cost efficiency of it, right? So when there is an initial, obviously, when you are doing automated testing, right? Or you are trying to develop an automated test script, you're trying to develop the framework, right? You have to invest on, the software, you have to invest on the resources as well, right? So there is an initial investment in creating and maintaining automated test scripts. But automation testing prove cost efficiency in a long run due to the time saving, it reduces manual effort, and it increased test coverage. Right. So once you get that at first, like you can just jump in and start testing your software manually, right? And it requires, let's say you are, testing a large complex software application, right? It requires, more, resources, and it also requires more human resources as well, right? To continue to do that over and over and over and over again. But once you have your automated test, at first you need to invest on it. And once you get that running and you're maintaining it, you could run it over and over and over again, right? And it will give you accurate and consistent results. Okay, so let's look at the next one we have, which is regression testing. So I mentioned earlier, automated tests are particularly effective for regression testing. Once there is any issue, anything that has gone wrong, once you've run your automated test, it picks that up, right? Those things that you wouldn't bother going back to test manually, the automated test can easily pick that up, okay? And then go to the last one, which is continuous integration and continuous testing as well. Automation testing integrates seamlessly with continuous integration and continuous testing processes, right? This ensures that testing is an integral part of the development pipeline, provide rapid feedback on code changes, right? So that's what automated testing can do. You cannot use manual testing for this purpose, right? So once you have your automated testing, you push it to your repository, you can build it into you can, integrate it into your continuous integration pipeline, which is the CI pipeline, where once there's any build, it triggers your automated test to build and run your test to ensure. So once if your test pass, the build will go ahead. So once you have it also on your delivery, right? So before any new build that the developer has done get deployed into the environment, into the development environment, into your testing environment, your automated test will be triggered. You'll just configure it there as a task, right? So it will be triggered to run. Once it has run and passed, everything is all right, it get deployed. So this is what automation testing, it just runs there continuously. And in some cases, you can also build a CI pipeline, have it to be running on the pipeline, okay? And once anything is broken or there's a bug on your web application, right? The automated test will flag that up. You go and fix that. Developer will fix that, and you'll continue. Okay. So yes, so let's go into the next one, which is popular automation tools. All right. So now we want to look into popular automation tools, right? So we have popular automation testing tools, which include Selenium. Oh no, there are so many of them, but we're looking at the popular one. So for automation testing, we'll look at Selenium, right? So we all know that Selenium is for web application testing, right? It's a software that you use and you will be using Selenium, right? You'll be using Selenium. It's good for web application testing. So we'll have JUnit, we'll have TestNG, we'll have MS Test, we'll have NUnit, and they are all testing frameworks for writing test scripts, right? So you can use your TestNG when you're writing, Java, um, You could integrate your C Sharp. You could integrate your Java using your. You could use Java as a programming language. You can use TestNG. You can use Selenium. You can integrate with Cucumber for your BDD. So, but what we'll be doing is we'll be using Selenium, right, as a software or a tool for our web application testing, and we would either use MS Test or NUnit, right? Depending on which one you want to use. So you will see us use NUnit, right, as our testing framework. We could also use MS Test. I've used MS Test a lot. I've used TestNG. I've used MS Test a lot, and I've used NUnit a lot. So we'll be using NUnit and MS Test as our testing framework. Right. So you have your Appium that we'll have there. Before I go over to Appium, I want to mention Cucumber or SpecFlow. We have Cucumber, we have SpecFlow. And this tool or this software is what enables us to write in behavioral driven development, BDD. So they are the software that are there sitting at the back of our automated tests to ensure that, or to enable us to write our code in given when then, right? To allow us to use the behavioral driven approach when writing our test. So when you are using Cucumber, integrate it with your Java, right? Using Selenium, and then you could use Java as a programming language, okay? But when you are using SpecFlow, right, you now integrate it with your obviously Selenium. You could use MS Test or NUnit. You could even use JUnit as well, okay? And then you'll be working in your IDE, which is integrated driven development, okay, which could be SpecFlow or IntelliJ IDE. There are so many of them. Okay, there are so many of them. Right. So we have Appium. Right. So Appium is a software that we use for mobile testing. It could be used to test both your, iOS and Android mobile applications. Okay. So yeah, these are some of the popular tools. We'll see other popular tools as we go ahead. All right, so yes, so these are other popular tools for testing. As you can see, we'll have Maven, we have Java. Java is a programming language. All right, we'll have Jenkins. Okay, Jenkins helps us for the continuous integration and continuous delivery. Okay, you can see this is a sign of Selenium. We have Appium, C# programming language. We have ASP.NET for Microsoft ASP.NET. We have our Visual Studio, which we'll be downloading. We have BDD, behavior-driven development. We have Test Complete by SmartBA. So there are so many of them. You can use a little bit of JavaScript. It's just using JavaScript to perform certain operation. So there are so many of them, okay? But what we're hoping to do, right, is we'll be using C#, okay, we'll be using MS Test or NUnit as our framework, using Visual Studio as our IDE, okay, obviously integrating with Selenium, SpecFlow, okay, for our automated test. That's what we'll be using. All right, so now let's go over to best practices in automation testing. I want us to know the best practices for automation testing. Okay, so best practices in automation testing. Let's look at what we have. We'll have clear test objectives. It is very, very, very important that before you start with your automation, it is crucial to define clear and achievable test objective. You need to know what you want to test. This objective should align with overall testing goals and software requirements, right? So a well-defined set of test objective guide with the creation of meaningful test case and help measure the success for automation testing effort, right? So that's why in most organizations where they have loads of manual testers and an automated test, so the manual testers will be testing different scenarios, and then they will not look at the business critical. They will not look at the scenario that if something breaks, the impact will be severe, right? So they will look at that one and add automated test. Okay, we want you to, the test manager or the test lead will say, okay, we want you to automate this scenario, right? So it's clearly defined. They know what they want to achieve. The automated tester will know what he's working on and will start automating that process. So most organizations, or let me say that the best practices is to automate the business critical, right? Those ones that would impact the business if it's broken or there's a bug on it, right? So the second best practice is to select appropriate test cases for automation testing. right? So you will see how we write, our feature file. You will see how we write the step that we use to write our automated test, right? So let me just say it now that it's not everything that you want to automate. Not all things can be automated. Know it, right? You need to carefully select the test cases, all right, that suit automation testing. Okay, so not all test cases are suitable for automation. You can't automate every test case. You need to understand the ones that are suitable for automation. So it is essential to carefully choose which test case to automate based on factors such as, right, frequency of execution, right? So you look at the frequency of execution, right? How often do we execute this, right? Automate. So I say frequency of execution, which include, writing an automated test for those features that you frequently execute, especially for regression purpose. Okay. You also look at the complexity, right? You write automated tests, okay, when it's a complex, scenarios and you have a lot of complex data combination, right? You also look at stability. So you also write automated tests for, functionalities that are stable and less prone to frequent changes. There are some organization, there are some, functionality that they change frequently. For example, when you're automating a website that already, have, built at the back, built CRM, right? At the back of it, CMS, not CRM, sorry, CMS. They have CMS at the back of it. CMS is content management system, right? So the developer has built this website, but they have CRM. Why do I keep saying CRM? They have CMS at the back of it. So now they've given this CMS, which is a content management system, to the marketers, right? So the marketers are using this CMS system to always or frequently change things, right? So now you as a QA, right? When you are into the search organization and you automate those ones that the marketers frequently change or the marketing department frequently change, you will find out that your code will keep failing because those particular features, it could be banner photo or banner image, right? So you've automated that to validate that this banner image is there. Then after 2 days, the marketing department will change it, design a new banner image or a new picture. Right. So you can automate such feature because if you automate it, your test will keep failing and you keep changing your elements and keep writing your automated scripts. So you look at those functionality, that are stable, that are not prone to frequent change. Right. I've also mentioned business criticality. So this is also an interview question. Let me just say it now. So they will say, "Oh, you're an automated tester." Yeah, you say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So how do you know when, at the course of carrying out your test, how do you know those features to automate? How do you know the functionalities to automate? How do you even know what and what to automate? Right? I've mentioned it now. I've said, the frequency of execution. I've also mentioned the complexity. It involves, if it's a complex scenario and, it takes a lot of data combination. So instead of you testing it over and over and over again, you want to write an automated test script that you can just run and that's it, right? So I've mentioned frequency of execution. I've mentioned complexity. I've also mentioned stability. Those functionality, any functionality that you need to automate should be stable enough, right? It shouldn't be the one that is, that always changes. And the most important is business criticality. I've mentioned that before. Business criticality. You look at the business critical ones, business critical functionality that have significant impact on the business. Right. So what are the business criticality when you want to, if you are being asked? Right. Let's use a website for example. Any website, your navigation is very important. You want to ensure that anytime you hit the URL, you enter the URL on the browser and hit on enter, right? It will navigate you to the homepage. You see the homepage. It is very, very, very important because you want to ensure that that website, that URL, takes user to the homepage, right? They want to see the homepage, right? So if it is a, a website that has a login and a registration, right? You know that before you do anything, before your user do anything on the website, they need to either login or register. Registration becomes very important, it becomes business critical. Because if they don't log in, if they don't register, the organization will have no business, right? It's business critical. If it's not working, the organization will start losing customers. So they need to be working they need to be up and running, right? So now you also look at if the organization have a product page, where have they displayed their products or their services, right? So the business services be should be visible for their client or their user to view and purchase, right? So you also look at, the checkout, the payment section, very important, because organization and in business to make money. I think Vincent mentioned that in one of his comments, comment that he made one some time ago, right? Every business are in business to make money and to deliver values, right? So if customers are able to log in or register, they're able to view, the services, they're able to click that this is the service that I want to purchase. If they are unable to pay, if that organization, that particular website or software has got payment functionality, if they are unable to pay, that means they are losing money. So that becomes also business critical, right? So there are so many of those things that that once you stop working, business will start losing money, they become business critical. Right. So those are the things you also need to automate. Okay. So once you get asked this question, just bear this in mind. Once you mention business criticality, they're already nodding their head and giving you thumbs up. Okay. So yeah, let's move on to the next one, which is maintaining test data separately. Right? Maintaining test data separately. So test data plays a crucial role in automation testing. Storing and managing your test data separately from your test script promotes maintainability and reusability, right? This allows for easier updates to test data without modifying the actual test scripts. Okay, use external data resources, database, or configuration file to store your test data. Make it easier to adapt, to change, and to manage, different test scenarios. Right, it is a standard process. Okay, so you can see some, test scripts, that is linked to database, they can store their test data, their database, and they can always go on the database to pull it out. You could see some, testing framework or test scripts, right, that stores their, test data on on a configuration file, right? You can easily access it, read it, and make use of it while writing code. So it is also a best practice. Okay, so we have the next one, which is regular updating test scripts, regularly updating test scripts. Very important. It's very important. So I have a scenario where I have done an end-to-end automated test script, right, for an organization. So I've written that test script, ensure that I've automated all the business critical, all the areas they want, an automated test to be written. They've run it. It's all passing. Everything is okay, right? So what happens? So now that test script has not been regularly updated. Right, so they keep running it and they keep running it and they keep adding more functionality. Right, so once they keep adding more functionality, things are changing, elements are changing. Right, so some of the tests start failing. So because no one is there to continuously or continually, update it and maintain it, right? So some of the tests start failing, and before you know it, all the tests will start failing. It could be that the version of Chrome driver that they are running it on has gone out of date and needs updating, or their packages, some of the dependencies on the software application on the automated test is out of date and need updating, right? So they haven't done that, and before you know it, it stops working. So it needs regular updating and maintenance. Okay, it's very important to do that, because as the code keep changing, the interface keep changing, they keep updating things, right? It will require an automated tester to also update that test script. Okay, so it is very important. And the last but not the least is continuous integration and continuous testing. So integrate automated tests into your continuous integration, which is the CI, and continuous testing process. This involves automatically triggering test execution whenever there are changes on the code base. Okay, so I've said it. We have the CI/CD, okay, where the automated test will run when there is you know when there's a new build, right? So there are changes sometimes depending on how it's been configured, right? So once there's a changes, CR or pull request is being created, right? So some will have their test, the CI part of things run, okay? Or when once they have a build, okay, it gets run. So that is also very important. It ensures that when there are changes that will break, whatever the developer has built, your test will catch it up immediately, will capture it, and it helps to detect defects early, right? It helps in continuous testing to ensure that everything works well. And it's very crucial to integrate this testing, automated test, into the build and release pipeline. It's very, very, very important. It provides rapid feedback on code quality. It is very, very, very important. So these best practices are very essential, okay, in building a robust and sustainable automated testing framework. Okay, so now let's go to challenges in automation testing. Right, so there are challenges in as much as it has, it has its pros. It also has its own challenges. Okay, so we'll look at the challenges and we'll look at ways to address it. That's what makes you an automated tester, right? It has challenges. You also need to know the ways to address those challenges. Okay, so the first one we'll have is initial setup and learning curve. Initial setup. So like I said before, manual testing, you can just pick it up, start testing. All right, you can just start testing, start raising bugs, start validating some functionalities, right? But for automation testing, don't just start writing automated test scripts. Okay, you need to set up your framework, right? So that initial testing, initial setting up of that your test script is a big challenge, right? Because the automation testing, to set up the automation testing process, it's very, very crucial, right? Not everyone can do it. There are some people who do not understand how to set it up. And in an organization that are moving into automation testing, let's say they've been doing automation testing for a long time, right? They've been doing manual testing for a while and they want to move into automation testing, right? So they face challenges of, initial setup, setting it up, and which could, you know, result to a new level of learning curve associated to how the automation, what automation test to use, how to set up the framework, how to set up the environment, how to configure the tools, and how to understand what scripting language, or the best scripting language to use, right? So they also consider uh, the time it will consume, or it will cause them to, set up the framework. They also need to invest on their, team, right? They need to invest on their team to learn how to use these resources, to become proficient in choosing automated tools, what automated tools they've chosen, or what programming language they've decided to adopt. So it is a huge challenge. Okay, so we'll look at the next one. The next one is maintenance of automated scripts. Right, like I said before, you don't just write automated scripts and just leave it there. Right, as software application undergo changes and updates, automated scripts need to be maintained to stay in synchronization with the evolving application. So maintenance involves updating the script to accommodate modifications in the application, UI, functionality, or the underlying code, those code that they used. So once they update it, you also need to update your test script, right? So it's very important to keep maintaining your automated test scripts, right? So because if you fail to maintain the test scripts, right, that could lead to false positive or false negative, right? So because once it's been updated, when you run your automated test could be failing. And you say, oh, it's failing, it's not working. But when you actually go on the website, it's actually working. Why? Because it's been the software or the application has been updated, but no one or the testers didn't update or maintain the automated test. All right. So as a result, your automation testing will start diminishing, its effectiveness will start diminishing because it will get to a point where it will no longer add any value because it will keep running and failing. But when you go on the website, it's actually passing. So it needs maintenance and it's also challenges because you need to keep maintaining it. So we'll look at the next one, which is UI changes, right? Changes in the user interface of the application can pose a significant challenge for automation testing. Right. So let's say you've written your automated test and developers, has gone to the UI or to the back and changed things around the UI. So it could make your automation test to fail. It could make your automation test to fail. That's why I said that when you are choosing what test case or what scenario to automate, you ensure that those ones that you want to automate are not the one that changes frequently. Frequently. Because any changes in the UI, right, could cause your automated test to fail. Right. Automated scripts often rely on specific UI elements or locators. Right. We'll go through how to choose the locator or the elements, the UI element. And when this element changes, scripts may fail. The UI can change. The UI changes can be frequent, especially in an agile development environment. Right. So because the developer will keep moving the elements around and stuff. So it could make your automated test to fail. That doesn't mean that actual functionality is failing. So UI changes is also a challenge. Okay, so but there are ways to to handle that, which include maintaining it. Okay, so now the next one is non-automatable scenarios. Some of the interview questions you get is, is automated testing, can you perform automation testing in every scenarios and every functionality on a software? Right? And the answer is no, you cannot carry out 100% automation on all the functionalities because there are some scenarios, you get that interview question a lot. There are some scenarios that are not automatable, which is called non-automatable scenarios, right? Not all testing scenarios are conceived to conducive to automation. Certain test cases, such as those involving subjective evaluation, exploratory testing, or scenario requires human intuition, right? And challenges to automation. So there are certain, test cases that I have tested a functionality before, right? And that functionality requires me at some stage when testing, requires me to hold up my passport and take a picture of myself. Right. How do you want to automate that functionality? Because what you are filling that particular feature is filling a form, and you got to a point where you have to hold your passport, take a picture of yourself with that passport, you holding the passport. Let's say you are writing automated test on that. So how do you intend to do that? Right. So there are so many other scenarios, right, that you can automate. Okay. So many other scenarios that you can automate. So you can always automate every, So identifying and acknowledging non-automatable scenario is crucial to avoid investing time and effort in automating tasks that are better suited for manual testing. That's why that question always come up. Right. So when you call yourself an automated manual proficient in manual and automated testing, right, and everything you say, yeah, we'll write automated test on it, and you've invested time, you got to a point where you say the automated test is what you need to capture, hold the picture and capture yourself. How do you want to do that? So it's always important to select it carefully, know which one to write automated test on, and know which which ones that are not suitable for automated test. Okay. So now we'll go over to strategies to address automation testing challenges. So we've seen the challenges, we want to also see the strategy we could use. Like I said, the first challenges we mentioned was initial setup and learning curve. Right. So how can you address that? So you see most organizations adopt training and skill development. So they go subscribe for system training, subscribe for, certain skills acquisition where they want to train their team. Let's say their team has been, their testing team has always done manual testing. Now they want to train the team on how to start writing test case, right? So how to start writing automated scripts, how to start carrying out automated tests. They engage them on training, and then which will help them to develop their scripts. Okay. So the next one is robust script design. Robust script design. So implementing a robust script design practice is always essential, all right, in making scripts more resilient to changes. So there are ways you could write a very robust automated test script, right? So when there are certain changes, it would not affect your any when there are certain changes, it will not affect your test. You've made your automated test or your test script more dynamic, right? Instead of hard coding things, you've made it more dynamic. So it helps, to make your codes keep running and all that, right? And you can as well use techniques like parameterization and create modular scripts for easier maintenance. So you parameterize some of the values or variables you want to pass. All right. So it helps for easier maintenance. So the next one include continuous monitoring and maintenance. Continuous monitoring and maintenance. We know why you do that, right? So because, like I said, when you haven't maintained it, you are not looking at updating it as possible, your code will start failing. Okay, so regular monitor automated. You need to regular monitor your automated tests, right? Result and update the script promptly to accommodate changes, right, in the software application. So once there are any changes, you need to, as a matter of fact, update it. Okay. And the next one is collaboration between teams, right? So you need to facilitate collaboration between the development and the testing team to ensure that any anticipated changes in the application are communicated in advance, right? Which will minimize the impact of automation test scripts. So let's say they want to change things. That's why you see some organizations are not adopting test-driven development. They will say, oh, okay, yeah. The developer will say, I'm going to update this functionality. I want to add so line. Before you get to this functionality, you need to click on this before you get that. And if it's not on your test script, you can just add it. So most organizations, they already know the ID they want to use to associate that ID to that particular feature, right, or the button. So you could go ahead and write your automated test even before the development. And once it's been developed, you run your test, it's passing. Okay, so that is where the collaboration comes in. It is very important. Okay, so the next one we want to look at is strategic test case selection. Right, strategic test case selection. I've said that before. Right, you need to carefully select your test cases for automation. That doesn't mean that you go and select the easier ones, right? Because you don't want the one that is more complicated. Like I said, you look at the business critical, right? You look at the business critical, those are the ones that you automate. Okay, you select it carefully, focusing on those that provide the most value and are suitable for automation. Those that provide the most value and are suitable for automation. Okay, so these are strategies, right, to um, addressing our automation testing challenges. Okay, so now we'll now have a look at automated test scripts. Okay, we'll show you what test scripts looks like, and from there we can start building up our. Let's go to the next screen. Next screen. Yes. So look at it very carefully. Okay. So it's not something you are not familiar with. So you can look at this and you say, oh, okay, this is something I'm used to. So you can see this is a sample of a test script, right, in SpecFlow with C#. So, but as it is, right, this is what is called a feature file. This is a feature file. It is written with Gherkin syntax. Okay, it's an example of a Gherkin feature file for a login functionality of a website. Written in C#, but obviously this is not written in C# at the moment. This is not written in C# at the moment. We use Gherkin syntax given when then. And when we learned Gherkin, we made mention of scenarios. So this is, for example, this is a feature. Like I said, this is an example of a feature file. So this is feature, and the feature is user login, right? So this is the user story. So Vincent, when you were writing your test case on Excel, you wrote a user story like this on your test scripts, right? So this is where you now have to write it. Okay, you write it on your automated test, okay, on the feature file. That is a brief description of what you are going to do, which is a form of your user story, not the acceptance criteria for user story. Okay, so as a registered user, I want to log into the website application so that I can access my account and use the services. Okay, so here you have your scenario. Like I said, you need to specify your scenario. So we'll have our scenario. So the first scenario we want to execute is successful login, right? Where we have given a user. So the same way you write it, this is the same way you write it on your feature file, right? You're going to be writing this feature file. You're going to be writing this feature file. Can you see? So as I was saying, this is the feature, right? You can see user login, right? You can see our description. This is the description. Okay, this is the description, right? Then this is the scenario. As you can see from this feature file for our automated test, we'll have our scenarios, right? We'll have scenario one, scenario two, we'll have scenario three. Can you see that? We'll have scenario three, right? So see if I can use this. Press that one. Yes. So yes, I believe you can see this. Right. So this is our feature file. Can you see? This is our feature file. This is our description. Okay. So you can see our scenario, right? You can see our scenarios, right? And one of our scenarios is successful login. We'll have another scenario which is invalid login, right? And we'll have another scenario which is forgotten password. Okay, forgotten password. So you can see it's written given when then, right? Which is part of what you are doing now. As a manual test, you write your test case. Can you see? You can see given a user is on login page when the user entered a valid credential, which is the username and the password, and click on login button, then the user should be redirected to the dashboard and the user should see a welcome message. This is valid, right? You can see the invalid as well, okay, which is giving a user is on login page when the user enter invalid credential. This is invalid username and invalid password, and click on login button. Then the user should see an error message, and the user should remain on the login page. Right, so the user is not able to log in. So this is another scenario. So this is how you'll be writing your feature file. Like I said, once you've created it, this feature file comes here automatically. Okay, bear in mind, I will show you how to create these feature files. Okay, you will get used to that. You'll be doing it from this current sprint. Okay, so then you write your description. As a matter of fact, our BA so kind, they write our user story. So it's the same thing. Okay, and then you have your scenarios and you write in given when then just like you're doing for your manual testing. Okay, now we'll also once you've created feature file. So I will walk you through how to create your automated test framework from scratch. Okay, so feature file is one of the folders and files that you have on your automated test. So when you want to execute any functionality, let's say you have your automated test framework setup. Okay, so you have your base test, your hooks class, will all show you that. You have your feature file folder, step definition folder, page object folder. Sorry, this might be sounding like French, but you get used to it over time. So you have all these folders. Okay, so once you before you start writing, your feature file, you need to create a feature file. Name it whatever you want to name it. Once you name that, all right, this will come up. Okay, depending on the name let's say you want to test about us. Okay, so you have entered the name of your feature file. It appears here. You write your you write your description in this format. Okay, you can now go ahead to write your scenarios and order. So once you are done with this, you are done doing this, the next thing you will do is to create what is called step definition. So you will right click on here. We'll show you how to do that. You right click on here and then create your step definition. Okay, we'll show you how to do that. And this is how your step definition will look like. This is now converting all those things you've written in plain English, okay, into C# programming language. So can you see this? Can you see? Right. Now you can now see you're using TechTalk.specflow, OpenQA.selenium, OpenQA.selenium Chrome, you're using NUnit.framework, you now have your namespace, you have your binding, you have your public class, you now have code to help you navigate to URL and all the steps. Okay, so this is called a step definition. We'll show you how to create this step definition, but this is how they will look like. Okay, so these are where you write your code inside your step definition. Write your code inside the step definition. So all these things will go over them and how you do it. Right? This is just to, show you a tip of an iceberg of how it will look like. Okay, so after that, you have what is we also call. Note that some organization, right, do their spec flow and they enter their element just like you can see on this one. You can see we have a code which says driver.navigate, go to this URL, right? So once this step, you can see the step. Once it's navigate to URL, the next one is this is the second step we want to execute driver.find element by ID username.send keys username, right? Because it's been parameterized already, which is what we're talking about, right? So you can see that they are writing their step on here. So some organizations use this method, but the industrial standard which will be taken or which will be adopting is what we call the page object model, right? The page object model. So with the page object model, you do not write driver.find elements by ID or by whatever here. Okay, that's what we'll be doing. So let's have a look at another. Okay, so this is example of a page objects model. So on here, this is page objects, right? You can see your namespace dot page objects. Let me go back to the other one and you see, okay, so your namespace dot page objects, yeah. So you can see, let me show you. You can see namespace, your namespace dot page objects. So this is adopting page object model. So with page object model, you store your elements on here. You can see private read only by username equal to by ID. They've stored it and they come under here. You can see their constructor, but they not come under here, right? So this is to initialize, constructor to initialize the web driver. So but they come under here to now write their method to enter. You can see the method or the method to enter valid credentials and click on login here. So what they will now do is just to call this method, okay, using their constructor on the step definition. Don't worry, we'll start doing all these things, okay, one after the other, and you'll see how it works. Very sweet, okay, if you get the gist. But this is just a, you know, uh, just for you to see how the automated testing, okay, is and what you'll be expected to do. It's nothing. I can see that if you said, I can see that too. Yeah, don't worry, it's nothing. It's sweet, to be honest, if you get the gist. If you are patient enough, you are calm, you're patient, you can see it's almost the same thing that is being done. All you need to do is just get the gist of it. Right, you can see driver.find element. We will explain all these things, we'll go into them in great detail, but this is just to show you how it is and how your automated scripts will look like. Okay, so and that's it for us. Any question?